TV, turning on your world.
Welcome to another episode of Teasing You Money. My name is Evelyn Owala and I'll be taking you through a tricep and a chest workout today. Yes, we're going to work out these babies here and this chest. And for the ladies, you know that kind of bra bulge? Yes, we're gonna work on it today. So let me go ahead and explain what we need. We need 2 water bottles. I've just gotten some detergents that I had with me, but you can get any 2 water bottles or any weight you can hold. And then we have, remember, the 2 have to be of equal weight. Then you can get yourself a cushion or something to elevate you from the ground, because as we'll be lying down, you need your chest slightly off, your back slightly off the ground. We have our 2 chairs as usual and our 2 water bottles. I am so sure you already had the 2 water bottles and the chairs and this place set up. So all you need to get is these 2 water bottles, right? And something to elevate you from the floor. Definitely you have your drinking water with you. I'll give you 30 seconds, right? 30 seconds to get the other 2 things that are probably missing, meaning the cushion and perhaps the 2 water bottles, so that we can be able to start our warm-up. Let's get this done. All right. If you're not awake, wake up, because we are getting started right now. Our time's up. And for those who have most of that ready already, we can just, warm up, a little bit here and there. Just warm up, stretch, just to get the hang of it before we get started, just to get that bed feeling out of you. We have 5 more seconds for the rest of the people who are picking some of that stuff up just before we get started. So there we go, the time's up. Our timer is up. I'll give them slightly more time, but our time's up. All right, our time is up. We'll start with a warm-up. We'll use the water bottle we have here to do swings. If you have a kettlebell, you're better placed. If you have a dumbbell, you could still do swings with us. We're going to do 30 swings times 3. Yes, I said 30. We gotta wake up, right? 30 swings times 3 for our warm-up, swinging under and bringing it up. All right, 1, 2, 3, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well done. That is 30. Our rest time starts now. 30 seconds starting now. Always walk around. Don't sit down. When you just wake up and it's your first set, you can always feel like, oh my goodness, I need to sit down. But the trick is walk around to make your body more active and to stay on being active. 5 more seconds to go. 5 more seconds. One, 2, 3, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. Well done. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. Walk around. Walk around. We have 10 more seconds to go. 10 more seconds to go. 5 more seconds to go. And there we go. Let's go last set. Last set. 1, 2, 3 and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. Well done. Well done, well done for that. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. I'm going to move the bottles aside just a little bit. We're going to do each one after this, where you crawl all the way to a flat, then tap your shoulder, and pedal back, right? So we're going to do that. Our time's up. Our time's up. So we're going to do 12 of that times 3. Let me demonstrate. You go all the way there and then tap your shoulder and pedal all the way back. Are we together? So let's start. We're doing 12 times 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 2 more, 11, 1 more, 12. Well done. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. seconds to go. And there we go, time's up. Let's go. Set number 2. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and of course 12. Well done. If you're not started sweating yet, I'm already sweating. Walk around, breathe in and out. Just to control your breathing. You don't need to use so much energy while you're at it. All right. We have 15 more seconds to go. 15 more seconds to go. Our time's up. Let's go for the next set. 1, 2, 3, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, one more. 12, well done, well done, well done, well done. Our rest time starts now, our rest time starts now. Look around, all right. That feels so good, that feels so good. So our next workout is going to be a push-up. We're going to do 12 push-ups. Remember from our last demonstrations of push-up, if you cannot do if it's your first time doing a push-up, it's absolutely okay. Sorry, our time's up. If it's the first time you're doing a push-up, It's absolutely okay. Just get a wall somewhere like that and lean back. Take the weight to the wall and push back using your arms. It will be a success story of 12 repetitions. If you have done that successfully before, or maybe you felt it was too easy, or you do the first set there and feel it's easy, it's absolutely okay. Get the chair, go slightly lower, and do your push-ups from there. Alright, it will be a bit challenging, but not as challenging as when you go down. Now, the last time you did that, or you do that in the next set, and feel I could challenge myself a little more, you can go down, right? Cross your knees, your feet, move forward a little bit, put weight on your arms, go down and push yourself up. Go down and push yourself up. Please don't rock yourself back into what I call a baby elephant position. Or don't come here and do this, which I also call a baby elephant position. Put them slightly forward, lean your body weight towards your arms and go down and up. Alright, and if you do that and you feel I could challenge myself a little more, you can do the full push-up. Are we together? So I've given different variations, 1, 2, 3, and of course 4 is the full push-up. Choose one and let's do the 12 repetitions times 3. 1, 2, 3 and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well done. Well done. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. All right. We have 10 more seconds to go. I love sipping my water in between the workout because in a cold morning, sometimes the body doesn't want to take enough water, and before you know it, the day has ended and you have barely consumed enough water for the day. So it's just good to make it a habit to keep sipping your water during these 30 minutes. At least you can consume a liter or two. All right, let's go. Set number 2. Set number 2. 1, 2, 3 and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well done. That is set number 2. Your rest time starts now. Your rest time starts now. We will have one more set of those push-ups. If you try the wall push-up and you felt that you're doing better, go to the chair. If you feel that you're doing better, go to the ground with crossed legs. And if that is easy, you could even do half crossed legs and half full push-ups. Or you can just do full push-ups throughout till the 12th repetition. Remember, don't feel restricted by the number of numbers we give here. You can as well do 20 repetitions. All right. As usual, let's go for the last one. Let's go for the last one. 1, 2, 3 and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well done. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. Remember, my name is Eve Noala of Vival Health and Fitness, EVEAL on Instagram, Facebook or Twitter. Thank you for joining us here on Teasing Body as we continue to kill this chest workout. Right. We have 10 more seconds. 10 more seconds to go. 5 more seconds to go. All right, and our time's up. Our time's up. Our time's up. So we'll go over to our next workout. Take our pillow or whatever you need to elevate yourself from the ground, right? From the ground. So we are going to do some flies. Some flies will cater for this part of the body. I know, ladies, I know. We want to kill that bulge. So we're going to do 15 repetitions. 15 repetitions. I'm just using some random bottles I have here. All right. So we lie like that. Take it up. And then, all right, let me face it up. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Take it to the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Well done. Put that to the side. Pick one of the water bottles, the water bottles that you have. If you have dumbbells, that's fine. You can do dumbbell press from down here. So we're going to combine these two. We're going to do 15 repetitions of this. 1, 2, 3, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Well done. Well done. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. We have 30 seconds of rest. So we're working on this part and the chest as well. When we're doing the push-ups and the crawls, we're working mostly on the tricep, but also on the chest, right? Because we're supporting using our arms. So, all right. We have 3 more seconds, and there we go. Time's up. Time's up. Time's up. All right. Set number 2. Set number 2. Set number 2. One, 2, 3, and move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Go it down. There we go. 1, 2, 3, and move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Well done. Set number 2 down. Our rest time starts Now our rest time starts now. 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 We have 10 more seconds to go. 10 more seconds to go. 5 more seconds. 5 more seconds. And there we go. Our time's up. Our time's up. Alright. Back to the ground. Last set. Back to the ground. Last set. 1, 2, 3, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Well done, well done. Now let's use the bigger water bottle. 1, 2, 3, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and of course 15. Well done, well done. If you killed that workout together with me, thank you for keeping me company, and thank you for joining us here at Tizi Nyumbani. We were able to hit those triceps and of course our chest. And ladies, don't worry about the belt, because now you know what to do about it. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. Have a lovely day and go out there and make life happen.
Huyo jamaa unaangalia hapo unamdespise atiana form. Hey, shida. Mungu halali, kuna day utapatana na yeye ameomoka mbaya. Gari ni ile nono na life inamwendea fiti, na wewe umechapa mako. Do hivi, jisort na huyu Morio, mjenge life, usije ukaregret mazee.
To get Jisort na Morio by Vuma, dial *811*930#. Skiza na Nation.
Fake news was so good that so many issues arose before the demonstrations.
The authoritative sources of information, it is becoming difficult to identify them.
Now, what was the role of misinformation in Zimbabwe's protests? We'll tell you what we found out.
We look at what happens when Facebook works with independent fact-checking organizations to combat misinformation on their platform.
And social media applications are tightening the news on misinformation with new features on their sites.
Royalville Gardens is an exquisite gated community nestled in a serene and secure neighborhood within Kiambu County. SMS your name to 20866 today for more details.
This is NTV.
Hello, East Africa, and welcome to your world. This Thursday, the 29th of October, 2020, we focus on a precious, finite commodity that provokes deep emotions and conflict: land. My name is Joseph Warungu, and coming up, we dig deep into the land issues that haunt many individuals when buying, selling, or inheriting land.
Kuna shamba iliachiliwa na mbunge ipewe maskwata wa kamiti.
How to deal with the perennial issue of squatters in the country.
Yule alikuja huko ni President Moi.
Victims cry foul over land demolition by the Kenya Railways despite claims that they got the land from the late President Moi. Over 20 people arrested in Guinea post-election violence. And this morning we're asking you, what is your experience of buying, selling, or inheriting land? What aspects of the process need to be changed or improved? But first, as the rising cases of COVID-19 continue to cause concern, let's find out the latest situation around the world. The global numbers, first of all, as at this moment, 44,749,782 people have been confirmed positive for COVID-19. Of these, 32,725,332 have so far recovered, while unfortunately we've lost 1,179,079 people due to the disease from across the globe. Coming to our own continent, and South Africa has the highest numbers. 719,714 people confirmed positive for COVID-19. Of these, 648,654 have recovered, and as at this moment, 19,111 people have unfortunately passed on in South Africa as a result of COVID-19. Coming closer home, Kenya first before we go to the region. 51,851 people as at this moment confirmed positive for COVID-19, and of these, 35,258 have recovered, and unfortunately, sadly, we've lost 934 people in Kenya as at this moment. Across our other East African neighbors, starting with Uganda, this is the situation there. 11,767 people confirmed positive for COVID-19. Out of these, 7,461 have so far recovered. 106 have passed on in Uganda as a result of COVID-19. Moving to our Somalia neighbor, 3,941 people confirmed positive for COVID-19. Of these, 3,185 have recovered, and Somalia so far has recorded 104 deaths. Finally, over to Rwanda, 5,129 people have so far been confirmed positive for COVID-19. Out of these, 4,851 have recovered, and in Rwanda they've lost 35 people. So that's the situation here at home, in the region, and around the world as COVID-19 begins what looks like a second wave of infections all over. Now, some of the stories we have for you this morning. Tanzanians on the semi-autonomous archipelago of Zanzibar queue up to cast their votes in the country's elections. Here, citizens vote for their own president and lawmakers, as well as for the Tanzanian national president. Veteran opposition candidate Seif Sharif Hamad arrives to vote in his sixth bid for the presidency in Zanzibar.
I'm very, very happy. I feel proud that I have managed to vote this year, because this event is not a secret event. So if somebody like myself, with my status, with my profile, they want to take note, to record everything I do, and they are stopped, then you can see yourselves how open is this commission. Always have been claimed that this commission is not open, it's not transparent. That's what it shows.
Ni muhimu kwa sababu napenda kuchagua kiongozi ninayemtaka mimi mwenyewe.
Uchaguzi ni vurugu tupu uliopo. Hapana uchaguzi hapana.
And staying in Zanzibar, Tanzania's ACT opposition party in the semi-autonomous island alleges its members found ballots pre-marked for President John Magufuli in elections. The election, for which around 29 million people are registered to vote, is taking place largely without external monitors, and most international media have not gained accreditation to cover voting on the mainland.
We have seen a lot of problems in this election. One of them is that we have discovered in different polling stations, we have seen these ballot papers, and we have caught some people with these papers. One person has been given a lot of papers like this. So this is a problem which we have discovered today. One person is given maybe 10 or 15, up to 20. And so there are some people who came today in the morning to report to us that they've been given 10 votes to vote at a time. Our agents are kicked out from the polling station without any genuine reason, just because they were kicked out, just not to observe the process. And then we expect that they will also be kicked out during the counting.
The fourth edition of El Guna Film Festival, taking place from October the 23rd to the 31st, presents a selection of the newest films from around the globe. Amir Shrebi, producer, says the Marrakesh Film Festival was cancelled because of COVID. But Chengona has the courage to maintain this edition. We're very happy. El Guna was here for us during the making of the film. We got some financial help. They were with us in Venice and Malmo. And we won the Grand Prix in Seneguna platform. Life must go on. We must continue to make films to show them. Cinema reminds us that emotion and the pleasure of being together is important. The 5 suspects in the 2014 murder case of national football captain and goalkeeper Senzo Meyiwa appear in court in Boksburg near Johannesburg. The accused are charged with murder, attempted murder and robbery. Meyiwa was gunned down at the home of the pop star girlfriend Kelly Khumalo, southeast of Johannesburg, during the evening of October 26, 2014.
Today marks exactly 6 years since former Bafana Bafana and Orlando Pirates captain Senzo Meyiwa was shot dead. His murder, which took place in Phosphorus in Ekurhuleni, brought the Meyiwa family immeasurable pain. It also sent shock waves across the country and the continent. After gathering sufficient intelligence information and evidence, I am happy to announce that there's been a breakthrough in the Senzo Meyiwa murder case. The first 5 suspects have been arrested between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. this morning in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. These arrests are as a result of multidisciplinary integrated approach to this investigation, which is working closely with the Director of Public Prosecution. The South African Police Service and the prosecution team are confident that we have a watertight case against all 5 suspects. At this point, we cannot reveal any further information as investigations are still ongoing and more arrests cannot be ruled out.
An opposition candidate in Ivory Coast presidential elections on October 31st, urges his countrymen to cast their vote to end the government of President Alassane Ouattara rather than going to set up barricades and throw stones at the police amid deadly pre-vote clashes that have left around 30 people dead since August. Around 35,000 Ivory Coast police and security forces were deployed from Sunday for next week's presidential election after incidents of deadly violence marred the run-up to the poll. Police and officials said some 14,000 police, 14,000 gendarmes and 7,000 soldiers will provide security for the poll on Saturday in an operation dubbed Trumpeting the Elephant, a reference to Ivory Coast's national symbol, according to the police source. Now, IRBM, that along with Oxford University and AstraZeneca has developed the COVID-19 vaccine, hopes that the vaccine will be available by the end of 2020. Italy has reserved 70 million doses, and the Italians who wish to be vaccinated could hopefully receive the dose by June 2021. Piero Di Lorenzo, president of IRBM, says, if, as we hope, the validation from the European Medicines Agency takes place at the end of the year, 25 to 30 million doses that are already ready thanks to the financial effort of the multinational AstraZeneca, which has assumed a major risk, can be distributed and delivered immediately to the European Union. Piero De Lorenzo added that if the vaccine were to be approved by the end of the year, during the following months, and taking into account that AstraZeneca has committed to produce 400 million doses for the European Union, then Italy has reserved 70 million doses. These 70 million doses will arrive by the end of June 2021, which means about 10 to 12 million doses per month. Now, demolitions are set to rock Naivasha, Gilgil, Molo and Kibos as rehabilitation works continue along the Nakuru, Kisumu and Gilgil-Malaba Railway. While some of the victims claim rightful ownership, the government insists no one on the Kenya Railway Corporation land will be compensated. Bridget Ngana reports.
Government bulldozers descended on establishments that dotted part of the 40 acres of land alongside the Nairobi-Nakuru highway belonging to the Kenya Railway Corporation in Nakuru town. And on this lot, this family shows us the documentation legalizing their presence here. They say this parcel of land was a presidential grant from the late President Daniel Moi after they ceded 6 acres of their land to Baringo High School back in the 90s.
Yule alikuja huko ni President Moi. Akasema, tunataka tuongeze hii shule na tungetaka nyinyi muko hapa kwa hii mapuroti yenyu mutafutiwa mashamba au plot. Sasa mzee wangu akasema anataka plot.
The family also claims to have won a legal suit against the Kenya Railways, contesting their presence here, but now they have lost everything.
Mam akona title deed. Si kama hiyo leasehold tunasikia wamepeana huku kwingine wamebomoa. Hii ni title deed. After a proper compensation was done by the former president.
According to the Rift Valley Regional Commissioner, anyone disputing the ongoing efforts to revive the railway is an enemy of progress.
We want our people to respect public property. Even if you see a school has got 50 acres and is only using 5 acres, please don't start making arrangements with somebody to lease to you or to give you a title deed for the remaining 45.
The medium gauge railway upgrading is meant to facilitate transportation of goods from the inland container depot in Naivasha to neighboring countries and is set for completion by April 2021. Bridget Ngana, NTV, Nakuru.
Okay, so land issues in Kenya. Lots to talk about. And I've got a panel that is experienced in these matters to help us discuss some of the issues and some of your concerns, or some of the things you may indeed want to know more about regarding land in Kenya, from acquisition, ownership, disputes, etc. With me here in the studio is Mr. Gasho Mutachi, who is chairman of the National Land Commission. I'm also joined by Abraham Samoei, president of the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya. And also on our fifth floor newsroom studio, we have Mwiti N. Mwiti, who is a young business development manager from Oligro Group Limited. And joining us via Zoom is Nedi Akelo Mamra, who's the managing partner at Law Advocates LLP, MS Law Advocates LLP. And also we welcome your comments and your questions, your experiences as well regarding land. So welcome to the discussion. And I want to first of all turn to you, Mr. Otachi. Welcome again to the show.
Thank you.
Now, we've had almost 8 months of COVID-19. What has that done? What has been the impact of that regarding maybe the land sector in Kenya?
Well, it's been huge. Let me start here. You know, COVID came as a shock to everyone, and just as with regard to many other institutions, when the announcement came about the dangers of COVID and precautions and all that, the first reaction, just like with many people, was to scatter, literally, you know, as you start thinking about what to do next. So in terms of office operations, they literally came to a standstill for quite a while. But then after some time, we started getting back to work, but, you know, small numbers in shifts, again with those guidelines. And that is not normal office operations. So that had a significant effect on what we do. But more importantly, a lot of our activity is on the ground, whether it is resolving disputes or whether it is engaging with the public, sensitization, and you know, and so on and so forth. It's up to now, really, it is impossible to have the usual interaction with the public that one would wish to have. Okay. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Mr. Samoei, over to you. Your work, well, not you personally, but your members, involves also being on the ground quite a lot. What kind of disruption have you faced during the pandemic season?
Thank you, Joseph, for having me this morning. Yes, COVID has had a very bad effect, adverse effect on the work of our members and generally the real estate sector. I think the global pandemic affecting all sectors has made it very difficult to work in close contact. So the issues of social distancing, the issues of accessing offices, working in teams are all affected. But more importantly is the effect it has had on the economy. The real estate sector is an economic good that is demanded by users for specific purpose. So with COVID affecting the economy, we are seeing negative effects in the economic, in the real estate activities. So lending is affected, rental collection is affected, leasing is affected. All the spheres of real estate sector are affected by COVID. And our members are in all those sectors, so their incomes are affected and their operations are equally affected.
Okay. Same question to you, Nedi. Good morning again and welcome to the show. Again, what's been the impact of COVID for you? Sorry, Nedi, give me a moment. I can't quite hear you from where I'm seated. Can you unmute? Are you on mute? Try again, please. Oh, yes, we can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. As I was saying, COVID has given us both positive and negative connotations to land rights and issues that we deal with in the framework of land. For starters, as lawyers, we have seen the courts come to a slowdown in terms of physical presence in court. We've seen access to land being hampered by the virtue of the fact that land registries have been closed for extensive periods of time. We've had fumigations going on. So issues such as charging property, transferring property, conveyances generally have been affected. The time period involved in transacting that has really hampered the economic impact of everything that we do with land. On the flip side, we've seen a lot of technological advancements. ICT has come into play, and we've seen a lot of, like in court, we have online filing, online virtual sessions in court. We've also seen the digital lodging of documents in the registry and such is also being improved by virtue of the fact that we are moving from a manual to a more electronic way of dealing in land. I think this has seen part of the initiatives that were brought in by the ministry to ease transactions in land come to play. We've seen some of the key traditional requirements being lifted, such as having to have your land clearance certificates before you can actually do a registration in land and other things like that. So we can say it has been both positive and negative as a whole.
Okay, thank you. And finally to you, Mwiti, good morning and welcome again to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph.
Now, from a little chat with you just before we went on air, I know that COVID actually has literally turned your personal life upside down. Briefly, tell me that story again.
Yes, Mr. Joseph, thank you for the question. COVID came at a time when personally I was coming out of treatment that I was unwell between 2018 to end of 2019. So having come out of that, before I even planned myself to venture into business and see how to recover myself financially, here comes COVID. So yes, COVID had an advance, has had an advanced effect on, from a personal point, on our incomes, our businesses. And going to the question you had asked the other members, the effects on our, generally across the landscape of the real estate industry where I trade. COVID came at a time when the real estate was picking up, and there were hopes that come 2020, the real estate landscape would have changed, and there were hopes of that. Then came COVID. You know very well, we started with the cessation of movements and the all issues around the restriction around COVID. For us, as Oligro, who we deal with selling of plots, our customers depend on disposable incomes to invest. And when COVID came and affected the economy, their ability to purchase, their ability to invest was greatly reduced, and they turned their priorities in spendings on what is basic. And so that has cut down on our targets greatly. But the year might end up well, and we are hoping come next year, we'll be turning a new leaf on our sales. And we hope that with the continued measures, we will see an improvement and an appetite and confidence on our customers. Generally around the real estate landscape, customers coming back and continuing with their purchases.
Okay, thank you, Mwiti. We're all hoping with you as well, hoping that COVID is brought under control. Now, let's get into the substance of the discussion. And I want to start with land reforms. And I think I'll start with you, Nedi, simply because I know you are involved in constitutional review, apart from conveyancing. You're also big on human rights and so on. The 2010 Constitution gave us promise and gave us hope for land reforms. How well are we doing?
The framework of land regulation is quite vast in Kenya. It's very extensive. The Brun norm, as we call it, is the Constitution. So the Constitution of Kenya 2010, Part 5 deals with land generally, but Section 40 is the one that gives individuals the right to own property. Essentially, if you own property and legally acquired property, your rights to own the property are protected under Section 40 of the Constitution. The Constitution the section is, however, not absolute, because if your property is found to have been acquired illegally, then the same cannot be protected by law. That means that you need to have the mechanisms and you need to have a determination that property that you want to be protected by law is actually properly acquired. Over and above that, we have different classifications of land. The land that I've talked about right now is private land. But other than private land, we have public land, which is managed by the National Land Commission, again, as under the Constitution and the National Land Commission Act. We also have community land, which is the third classification. It is actually managed, regulated under the Community Land Act. which is also one of the new land laws that have been brought into being after the Constitution came into effect. Now, what I've spoken about is basically just a fraction of the land laws. Of course, the Land Act is about the land regulations, which have gone into a vast looking at how the policy is supposed to be implemented. I know the national land policy after the Constitution has not yet been implemented, but we're still working on the sessional paper that came from the 2009 land policy and the National Land Act that is still in debate right now. That basically gives us a framework of what we have in terms of land laws in Kenya.
Oh, okay. Mr. Otachi, let me turn to you. In terms of land reforms, where are we at the moment?
Thank you for that question. Maybe let me just start from what the last presenter has just spoken about. The new constitution, the 2010 constitution, made it very clear about the categories of land, public, which is what, as she said, NLC manages, private land, and community land. And community land, I think that's very significant that the constitution entrenched that in the constitution. Now, so when we talk about reform, we start with the 2010 Constitution and a whole new way of looking at management of land. The creation of the National Commission was probably one of the most significant steps in reform in terms of setting up what ought to be an independent regulatory or oversight body. And alongside that, of course, there's also the role of the counties, being clear about the role of devolution in management of land. And to a large extent, community land that is supposed to be owned by communities and counties is related to the counties. So that is a very significant step in terms of land reform. Having said that, we have to appreciate that the actual reforms take time in terms of implementation. So over the years, there have been laws that have been developed, new laws under the new constitution, which, and with the Land Act that consolidated a lot of the old laws. And the implementation of that is now what is ongoing, and that really will take time. But I think we are on the right path in that.
Mr. Otachi, for some of the Kenyans who and your docket is overseeing public land. Right. For some of those Kenyans who are losing their land because of government either infrastructure projects like we saw the railway or other places, they may not see much in these reforms, or they may not see much progress since 2010, especially when they do not get compensated for losing land to the government.
No, I think these are really, I would say, the exceptional cases. The NLC is continuously, we are, as the Commission, we stand at the intersection between private and public land. And we are continuously acquiring land for public purposes. And there's set procedures, and those procedures are followed. I think what happens every now and then is we have a scenario where certain members of the, of the public believe that they have certain rights over some land, which they may or may not have. And what I would advise the citizens is to always check and cross-check what they hold in terms of rights to the land, and in that we assist as well. But there are also many scenarios when members of people are told you need to move out, they are given notices, this is public land, and they still hold on to the land. Now, there also exist laws and regulations on how people should, should be evicted. There will be notice and so on and so forth. So it's really a question of balance. But you can't change the fact that public land is public land. Right. So it's all a question of how do we have people move out in as humane manner as possible.
And for me, that was going to be the question, because as a lawyer yourself, because I know you have a legal background, when you see people being evicted without due process, with very little notice or sometimes no notice at all, or actually just evicted inhumanely, they also have certain rights, especially if it's land that they have occupied for a long time. How does that make you feel?
And that's why I talk about the balance. The balance here is give reasonable notice. A lot of times, and we've come across those scenarios, a lot of times notice is actually provided, And Joseph, you'll agree with me that we Kenyans, and I speak for all of us, have a tendency to wait until the last minute to react to something. There are a lot of times you find people have been given notice to move. They just stay put until the last minute. Then they start saying, no, we are not given notice. Now, and I'm not saying that happens all the time. There are times, yes, true, there are times when there's very little notice. And I think, again, I said the law is clear about that. There ought to be reasonable notice.
Okay. Yeah. Mr. Samoei, your experience of land reforms in Kenya?
Joseph, I think the journey to land reform has been long and winding. If you look at the journey from the national land policy that gave birth to the Chapter 5 of the Constitution, the country has made significant gains in land reform. We now have the Land and Environment Court, we have the National Land Commission, and we have legislation regarding land that was cut in 9 statutes have now been consolidated. So we can say the country is on the right path to land reform through legislation. But I think the biggest issue has been implementation. If you ask me if I was to rate the land reform, I would give it an average score of 60%. And the 60% would be the infrastructure that has been put forth and the legislative framework that has been set up. But I think if you look at the pace of implementation, the manner in which it is implemented is why they are losing 40%. If you look at the commission was envisaged to be an independent regulatory body in the land sector. It was essentially to take over what the Commissioner of Lands was doing and possibly cure all the ills that we had with that office. I think it was captive to political power, and that is why they thought professionals in the commission could provide oversight and guidance on land matters. What we are seeing now is the commission, and thank you for bringing the chair here, is slowly being pushed to the periphery to maybe an advisory role. And whereas we thought when the commission is coming, it would be a strong commission to give a counterbalance to land management and administration in the country. And I'm afraid if we are to go the direction we are going, maybe in the next BBI, somebody would say we don't need a commission. So I think we need the commission to come out strongly as what we expected in the Constitution by having it play its role. Secondly, I think we forget as Kenyans the role the state plays in land matters. Many people call it system, many people call it many things, but I call it the veto player. The government has a veto on many issues on land, and how it plays itself in how it allocates resources in land programs, institutions, legislation. And you would see over time the role of the state has been clawing back the gains in land reform. If I would give you one instance, the National Land Information Management System, where we are supposed to digitize and have all land in one platform, has taken so long. There have been very many attempts. We don't know why. The experts in the land sector are not engaged to the full extent. They're able to guide that process. And that shows how the commitment of the state is on land reform.
But in fairness, process. Mr. Samoei, digitization is happening.
It is happening. It has been happening for 20 years. So when you say it's happening, I would say that's the same issue we had when the Honorable Charity Ngilu was there.
So you don't feel there's been any improvements or change or substantial improvement?
I'm concerned with the pace. I think if you look at how we are doing other things in government, the resources we are allocating to other programs in government, we should have had the same effort in digitization of land, in the land reform.
Oh, okay.
Secondly, maybe before I forget, is when I talk about veto power, is who is leading land reform in this country. And our members feel we have not been given the opportunity as experts to be at the helm of guiding the ministry and land reform. If you see, many a times since independence, we've had other experts coming onto the land sector, the CS, the PS, everybody. And that plays a key role in leading these programs. So we hope that as we go forward and we think about how do we become better in land reform, we are able to engage experts, our members who are qualified, to help in doing the 40% that is remaining.
Okay, Mr. Samoei, thank you. Now that the chairman is here, let me go back to your first point. The feeling, as Samoei says, is that the 2010 Constitution gave your commission certain powers, but you seem to be losing the teeth that you were given in terms of being very proactive in, exploiting your mandate. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I think there's some truth in what Samoei says. The commission that I inherited, I came into office a year ago. A lot had happened over the years. I think the Constitution envisaged a strong, robust, and independent commission, and there is some legislation at the beginning that tried to entrench that. Now, one of the most significant changes in the law was to do with the county management land boards, which had been set up at in the initial stages of the new constitution, and they were set up at the counties, but that law was changed and they were done away with. I think that was a very significant erosion of the powers of the commission. There have been also other laws over the years that have clawed down on the powers of the commission. As I said, by the time I came into office last year, this had all happened. So yes, I think Kenyans are trying to make sense of what is it that they want. I mean, it is Parliament that makes the laws. So Parliament will say, and their constitution provides for certain broad powers of the commission, and provides that Parliament shall enact legislation. So Parliament will come up with legislations that says, these are your powers. Then after some time, those powers will be taken away. So
is it right that the commission has been captured by the state?
Well, I don't want to use the term captured, really, right. Because, as I say, here is Parliament that has come up with laws that enable the commission to exercise its mandate. And after some time, that law is amended, the powers are clawed back.
Okay.
Now the question is, these members of Parliament, who are the representatives of the people, are they acting on behalf of the Kenyans in saying, now we think we want to reduce your powers and so on and so forth? So I think it's a question of, maybe it's important that the Kenyans are clear about what is it that they want and expect of the commission.
Okay.
And I say Kenyans as represented by members of Parliament.
Now, Neddy, let me change gear a little bit and talk about women and the rights of minorities to land. How well are we doing in this area?
I think with women, we are still having a struggle. But before I even comment on the women, I think I'd like to just touch up on what the chairman has said with regards to the NLC and them coming in. Well, they're supposed to come in to protect a space. What we need as practitioners, as the common Mwananchi and as Wanjiko, is probably simplified processes. They were brought in by the Constitution. There's an act that gave them specific mandates, certain mandates of which were timed. We've seen the time lapse without them being properly implemented. And I think we have regulations under the act which are supposed to be brought to bear, which the chairman being here could take a big step in leading that process. Now, when it comes to women and land, I think the most important thing for women is access. And by access, I mean affordability, I mean availability, and the usable nature of the access to land. By affordability is the fact that you need to have land and access, like a way to use land that is available and accessible to you and that you can afford. We've seen a lot of women hampered by virtue of the fact that cost is an issue when it comes to accessing land, to using land, to the patriarchal nature of owning land and maintaining that land in the family. We want to laud the certain legal frameworks that have gone ahead to make this process much easier for women in terms of affirmative action and equality. To start with, we have the Constitution that has given about the issue of public participation in land, where women as members of the society can be had in terms of public participation. When it comes to the formulation of laws and implementation of those laws, the women can have a space on which they can be heard, and how their plight is to be implemented can be put into place. Now, other than that, we have, of course, the gender discrimination that has been removed with the Constitution as well, because of the fact that we are being asked for, when it comes to the citizens, everybody is equal before the law. Patriarchally, we have a society and a context where men were allowed to own land, to inherit land, and to hold that land on behalf of themselves and their female siblings.
Is that changing?
Example, sorry?
Is that changing?
I think we are seeing that changing. If you look at the law of succession, we see a lot of equality being brought to bear. The Constitution gives everybody an equal right, which means that when it comes to us being able to access courts, which courts have been made more affordable in terms of inheritance and succession, offspring are inheriting property from their parents in equal measure. Not only as where before it's only the male counterparts who are able to now inherit property and hold it on behalf of the family, but we have everybody in terms of male and female offspring of an owner of land inheriting the land in equal measure. This is provided for by the law. Now, if you look at also what has been given by the County Government Act, this was alluded to by the chairman, Mr. Otachi, we see that the County Government Act, Section 87, Section 113, gives about the issue of public participation as well. Public participation cannot be underscored. It is the one part that women's voices start to be heard in terms of sensitization, in terms of awareness and empowerment. The Land Act has also been able to give equal recognition of land ownership rights in terms of our patriarchal nature and how it has changed. The Land Act has given us a way where we have all citizens owning land equally, whether male or female. And therefore, as beneficiaries of any property, we get to see women getting a chance to actually stand on the same platform as men, which is a plus. It is not where we need to be, but it is a place where we have already started, and we should be able to actually enforce it much more.
Okay, now, go ahead.
Sorry, I was only just going to bring about the Community Land Act and the Matrimonial Properties Act, which have equally also brought a platform for women to be able to be heard in terms of the space of land ownership and the owning of rights. As a spouse to anyone whose name appears on any title, we see that we have land rights that are being entrenched as matrimonial properties. What is defined as a matrimonial home, and how women can actually protect their space in owning that land as a family. That happens very clearly in terms of the legislation and litigation of the Women's Rights in the Matrimonial Properties Act. And in summary, we see that all this has been brought about by the Kilimanjaro Charter of Demands, which has actually brought access and implementation of women. We are looking at rural women in the rural setup, being able to be given a platform by these African states that came together and came up with this charter to show how women can be better accessible in terms of land and ownership of land.
Okay, now Nedi, I want to get into the detail of inheritance in a moment, but first of all, Mwiti, let me bring you on board, because I know you are providing a solution to the issue of women not being able to access affordably land, because you're targeting in your business low income earners and so on. Can you tell us a little bit about how it works? And I know that majority of your clients are actually women.
Yes, Mr. Joseph. Yes, I work at Oligro Group, which our core business is to buy land, subdivide into plots, and sell. Now, to your question, today's woman is actually our #1 client. I think owing to, and referring to your question, owing to customary issues, issues of the law of succession, and other society issues that have locked out women from owning land or from inheriting, today's women have changed tactic, and he's not waiting to be given land. He's not waiting to inherit. He's actually buying. If I give you a practical example, at Oligro, back in Mombasa, where we trade and we sell our plots at, our target market is the low income earners. This segment of people who want to, or clients who want to own a parcel of land at a price below 500,000 shillings. It happens that the biggest percentage of our customers today are actually women, and it's a trend that has been there for quite some time. We've been in business since the year 2017, and this is a trend that we have observed all through. If I give you an example, if a group of clients come to our site, and it's made up of women and men, I can assure you at any given time, majority of those women will commit and will end up buying that land. The men may kind of shy off, and they dally, they delay, and the woman is able to make that decision very fast and invest. And going forward as a company, this is one of the market segments that we want to continue focusing on. And also, Mr. Joseph, allow me to comment on your previous question about the land reforms. From a positive point of view, I got into the real estate in the year 2014 or thereabout in Mombasa. I've been in Mombasa all through. Back then, giving an example, the issue of having a title transferred or processed could take up to 6 months, 3 months, and sometimes up to 6 months due to delays here and there. But today, that scenario has completely changed. We are able to process titles across the board within 2 weeks, maximum 4 weeks. The process today is very fast, it's very efficient. A small exercise like getting, processing a title, a certificate of a title search, which is very important when a customer or any other person has intentions of buying land, because it gives you the true status of a particular piece of land that you're interested in. That process could take up to a week years back. We are talking of 2014, 15, 16, thereabout. We've traded a lot within Mombasa County, Kilifi County, and Kwale County, and that affected those areas, and I believe even by extension other parts of the country. Today, that document can be assessed and processed within a day. At times, you walk into the lands registry of the particular county and you walk out with the document. So these are some of the improvements and call them reforms that have happened, and they have made the business of the real estate much easier and faster. Okay. And there is still work to be done, especially in the area of digitalization. That has been a conversation that has been there for some time. And as business people in the real estate, we are looking forward to that actually being actualized.
Okay. Muti, thank you. So, Otachi, some good news there. Some things are moving.
Yes, certainly, yes. Well, of course, the land registry is I cannot speak authoritatively about that because that is not in our area, much as the National Commission has a mandate also to advise national government on systems of land registration and so on. But I know as a fact that there's a lot of effort going towards digitization. I think we are really almost there. There have been, you know, a few false starts. And some of those false starts have also been influenced by stakeholders, including the LSK to which I belong, which had gone to court to stop digitization some time back. So there have been, and I suppose for good reasons also, but there have been various reasons why we have not moved as fast as should have been. But in our interaction with the Ministry of Lands, I think we are almost there with digitization. And once it's properly entrenched, I think a lot of challenges that we have now will be a thing of the past. And I'm also very happy to hear from Miti that, and that's what you're talking about, yes, positives. Yes. Now, the positives, you know, there are those who always want to look at the glass as being half full, and those who want to look at it as being half empty. Let's look at the positives. As Miti has said, there is a lot going on very well at the registries. As has just been said about women's rights, and he has also pointed out, women are buying properties. They are not. The law is not in their way. Now, we've also been told, and that quite rightly so, much as the challenge with ownership and access to land by women and marginalized groups, is historical because of the patriarchal nature of our society. I think in the last 2 decades, there has been a lot of advancement, and that has been acknowledged. The matrimonial properties law, and it's not just the act. In fact, even the courts over the last 2 decades have been very progressive in their jurisprudence. So we have the law that is in favor of women, that is matrimonial law. These days, if you want to sell land, I suppose you have a parcel of land you want to sell. If you're married and you come to me and you want to do a transfer, I will want your spousal consent. It does not, these days, it's not easy to just decide I want to wake up, and sell land without a spousal consent. And we have all those that are working in favor of women. So yes, let us acknowledge the positive aspects of reform. Okay. And as I said, they will be gradual, but I think we are heading in the right direction.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Tachi. Now, the government has bought 91 acres of land in Mikajuni in Kilifi County. And, the land will be used to settle squatters in the area so as to end the protracted land disputes. The property, which belonged to a private developer, will be allocated to all registered squatters in the area. Lands Cabinet Secretary Farida Karone, who was speaking in Kilifi recently, said the President Kenyatta would issue title deeds. Karone also urged residents not to sell their land, at the same time warning cartels against intrusion into the property.
Waliungana wakaenda wakavuna mgaro na tukashukuru kwa sababu majibu.
Ile kitu tunafanya siku hizi kwa wizara, utaona hizi title ambazo zinapewa bure zinakuwa na sort of a caveat kwa register. Yaani ukitaka lazima uilipie. Lakini watu wameshajua huo ujanja pia. Mtu anaenda anatafuta bwenyenye ambaye ako tayari kununua, anakuja analipa ule ushuru unatakikana na wizara, alafu anapata huo uwezo wa kubadilisha.
Na imegawiwa mtu pale alikokaa. So hakuna standard acreage. Pale uliko ndio unapewa shamba yako hapa. Tutajaribu ku make provision ya barabara, passageways na small public spaces. Shamba tulinunua mwaka huu kwa amri ya rais na title deeds ni 1,300.
Okay, Mwiti, you're in Nairobi now, but your business is closer to where that story was happening. Have you been following those developments?
Yes, we have been following those developments.
Yes?
Yes, and that's a process that is ongoing by the government to actually hand over through a similar process that happened in an area called Likoni, the Waitiki land, where squatters had invaded a private property, and the government came in, settled with the owner, and was able to allocate parcels of land to the squatters there. And we have the Mikanjuni case, which is very similar, where the government is in the process of doing the same to ensure that the squatters who had invaded gain by now getting documents to the particular parcels where they had probably invaded and done some development. And also the owner of the parcel doesn't lose, he's compensated. And I think in a positive way, it's a win-win for all, and that will contribute in a great way in settling or addressing the issue of land in that area. And it's a positive move, and as real estate players would be very happy if similar cases would happen, because you find there are quite a number of parcels of land here and there, not only around the coast area where we trade, but also other parts of the country, where similar cases, individuals have invaded private land, and the land remains unproductive because the owner of the land is not able to utilize it as they had initially planned. And those who have invaded are not able to develop through permanent installation of permanent structures and such things, and they cannot even sell or even utilize those particular parcels in other gainful ways, like accessing loans and other facilities. But now, when the government partners with the community and also with the private owners to ensure that the private owner is compensated and those who have invaded are given papers, it's a win-win, and it ends empowering both sides of the parties.
Now, Mwiti, let me take you back briefly to what you said earlier, that a lot of the clients who you attend to are women.
Yes.
In percentages, what are we talking about?
Let me give you an example. Oligro, as I mentioned, Oligro Group, we focus on providing properties that are priced at below 500,000 shillings. And the reason for that is this. As far as the latest as 2019, the statistics clearly showed that Kenya has a shortfall of roughly 250 houses or homes every year.
Thousand, you mean?
The supply is not more than 50,000. So there is a deficit of 200,000 homes or such as every year. Now, come to the common Wananchi. The majority of the Wananchi, the majority of Kenyans, have been locked out of owning properties simply because of economic issues that are beyond them. This is something we noted, and we came into the market to address that by providing plots that are below that, and then are below 500,000 shillings, in the hope that the person buying can keep it for reselling at a profit later.
Wait,
let me buying can develop.
Sorry,
Yes.
I'll interrupt you because I need to take a break. We'll come back to hear more about the low-income earners and their interest in property. But just before we take the break, let's look at some of the comments that you've been sending us. We asked you this morning, what is your experience of buying, selling, or inheriting land? What aspects, of the process would you like to see improved or changed? Rutere Kagendo, you say, well, it's never as it appears. It's never straightforward either. It's never a surprise to find the real owner years later. Always get up to 100th opinion if you can. Okay, we'd love to hear what actually happened to you. Maurice Were, you say, well, we have a lot of real estate that are selling land today. Some of them are not genuine. We'll tackle that in a moment. Dan Kiptum Agui, you say it's a national disaster. Okay, we should explain that more. Gordon Okuku, cadastral system needs to be checked and changed. Let's hear more. Explain that more because we're interested in some of those comments. We'll be right back with more on land issues in Kenya, on your world. But now, a short break.
Washing is not equal to cleaning. Cleasoft equals real clean.
Cleasoft cleans not just the surface of the clothes, removing stubborn stains easily. Effective antibacterial agent goes deep into the fibers, removing 99.99% of the hidden germ. Congratulations! You are the winner!
In prison, I thought a lot about you.
This is not acceptable!
We know you love milk, and now there is milk that loves you. With Gold Crown lactose-free milk, you can enjoy the richness of natural cow's milk without any of the digestion discomfort. Gold Crown lactose-free, milk that loves you.
It's one platform where everybody has a voice.
If we don't have jobs, if we don't have money,
if
we're not, if our business...
Hosted by the King of Wit.
Do you know the Bible to that much detail? Ama hizi ni zile tu zinaendanishana na dhambi zenye unajua.
It's basically everybody's show.
Vitamin C ni cassava, shauri ya nguvu. Vitamin D ni dania.
Ana chakula, anaimba. I have decided.
The Wicked Edition with Dr. King Ori and the Guesswork CEO, Kenya Jui.
The Kisumu County Assembly specializes in stimulants, to be specific, concentrated coffee.
Where humor meets sense.
Moses Kuria alinitwanga hapa serious.
Soldiers wanakuanga wameka polisi excuse. Mbona nyinyi mkimbiangi mkituona?
The Wicked Edition. Every Friday at 7:30 p.m. Only on NTV.
Akili, 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 akili. Let's chase the germs away. Let's chase the germs away by keeping our hands clean. And when you want to sneeze or when you want to cough, do it in your elbow. Let's practice sneezing into your elbow. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Achoo! Again. Achoo! Yay! You did it! Germs, germs, germs. They make us sick. Germs, germs, germs are not our friends. Germs, germs, germs. They make us sick. Germs, germs, germs. Germs, germs, germs are not your friends.
Fake news was so good that so many issues arose before the demonstrations.
The authoritative sources of information, it is becoming difficult to identify them.
Now, what was the role of misinformation in Zimbabwe's protests? We'll tell you what we found out.
We look at what happens when Facebook works with independent fact-checking organizations to combat misinformation on their platform.
And social media applications are tightening the news on misinformation with new features on their sites.
Royalville Gardens is an exquisite gated community nestled in a serene and secure neighborhood within Kiambu County. SMS your name to 20866 today for more details.
Timeless love. When revenge grabs hold of your heart, the battle between love and hatred is to the death. A man who vows to avenge his brother, and his revenge will hurt an innocent woman. A woman he hates, but also loves desperately. Timeless love. On Unscripted with Grace.
I've read stories about women who killed their kids. That was not me, I don't know.
Everyone has unscripted moments in their lives that can forever change them and who they could become in the future.
They were beating me in front of my mom's and my grandparents' grave. I remember there were times he'd beat me so much I thought I was going to die.
We'll take it a step further and talk to an expert to give us some necessary insight on what to do when life happens.
Join Grace Musalame this Saturday from 8 p.m. only on NTV.
The procedure of reporting assets to Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Write an email to holders@ufaa.go.ke to request your profile to be created. Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Receive, safeguard, reunite.
Welcome back to Your World, and this morning we're discussing matters land. With me on the panel, Gershom Otachi, who is the chairman of the National Land Commission. We're also joined by Abraham Samoei, President, Institution of Surveyors of Kenya, as well as Nedi Akelomambra, who is the managing partner, MS Law Advocates, LLP. And we also have with us Mwiti N. Mwiti, who is the business development manager at Oligro Group Limited. Just before we get back into the discussion and now make it a lot more practical, a 25-year-old dispute over the controversial 419-acre farm in Kamiti, Kiambu County, continues as different squatter groups and the Kenya Forest Service claim ownership. The squatters claim they were allocated the land by the late President Daniel Arap Moi in 1994, but the process was hijacked by corrupt government officials who have sold off the land to private developers. Now, one of the group which claims to be the original beneficiaries of the allocation wants the government to intervene and hand the land back to the rightful beneficiaries. In the past, the Ministry of Lands has maintained that the parcel remains government land as it was never degazetted.
Ujumbe ule ningesema kwa serikali kuu ni kwamba tunadhibitisho shamba iliachiliwa tupewe, lakini imefunikiwa na wale matajiri kupitia pesa sawa. Kwa hivyo tungeomba serikali ya Uhuru ijue kuna shamba iliachiliwa na mbunge ipewe maskwata wa kamiti anima bloko 2 plot 8390. Kwa hivyo tungeomba hiyo shamba ahakikishe matajiri wameondolewa, tumepewa sisi squatters wale ambaye tulifyeka hiyo shamba na mikono yetu.
Okay, just before going, Mr. Otachi, let me get a quick comment from you on this. When you have an instance where the government, the state, or in this case the president, gives land to people, to landless people, do they become rightful owners? What's the degazetting process that these guys are complaining about?
Right. Now, of course, this has to be looked at on a case-by-case basis, but as managers of public land, which NLC is, our primary responsibility is the protection and securing public land. And when it comes particularly to forest land, the law is very elaborate as to how that land can revert to private hands. So whether it is committee, whether it is Ngong, whether it is Mau, wherever it is, the law is clear about how it is that that land ought to be degazetted. Under the current law, by the way... Whose
decision is it? Does the president have those kind of powers?
Under the current law. Well, in the past, in the past, the law may not have been as elaborate as it is now. Now it's very elaborate. It's only Parliament that can actually endorse degazetment. And maybe before we go into that question, something that we must keep in mind is that forest land is particularly important in terms of the environment and the need to maintain forest cover. And all that is in the Constitution. So that forest land is really sacrosanct. And degazetment, and the reason you have to go to Parliament to degazette is basically that. Now, of course, the president probably would have made a pronouncement then. The issue is whether the process was followed through to ensure that there was proper degazetment and the allocation. So then sometimes there are those scenarios where I would sympathize with members of the public who would say, well, a pronouncement was made, but was that pronouncement followed through? And really that is why I think one of the reasons the National Commission was conceived of is to deal with those matters from an independent, as an independent institution, to deal with the matters rather objectively and be clear about it.
So in this case, are you sympathetic with the committee squatters?
I'm sympathetic with them, yes. But if it's public land, it's public land.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, earlier we reported on how a family of the late Cabinet Minister Mbio Koinange was embroiled in a land ownership tussle in Banana in Kiambu County. One of his grandchildren, Kanja Koinange, accuses one of his aunts of trying to evict them from a piece of land in Banana that was given to his late father, who is a son to the late Cabinet Minister. Kanja, who is seeking justice, claims the aunt is using her close connections to people in government to disinherit him of the land. The family is now calling on the government and the Ministry of Land to intervene.
Since my father died, ndio sasa ameamua atunyang'anye. Amekuwa akigawa hii shamba, anajaribu kuuza because my father is not here to agitate. Sina kwingine ya kwenda. Na amezikwa hata hapa. Nashangaa sasa anauza, sijui anataka tupeleke baba yangu wapi.
Nashangaa inaweza kuwa namna gani bibi ameoleka akuja akute mjane na mtoe kwa shamba ya bwana yake. Because even her mother told me father-in-law yake alimtoa mpaka huko chini akampatia shamba kutoka huko chini toka huko mpaka kwa mto mpaka huko juu akampeleka na naamini mama yake.
Okay, Neddy, let me get a quick comment from you before we move on. We have a lot of these land wrangles involving families all across the country. When it comes to inheritance, what guides us in that process when someone is about to pass on in terms of who you leave your property to?
I think when it comes to inheritance, you can either
Sorry, I think you're on mute, Neddy. Please check. Okay.
I'm on mute.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, when it comes to inheritance and succession, property is passed on either tested or intestacy. Now, what happens is where a person writes a will before they die, the statements in the last will and testament are carried out as they have written it in the will. But where there is no will, then the property is divided among the beneficiaries who are known as dependents. Now, the dependents by law are defined by the Law of Succession Act. The dependents are the offspring of the deceased, and their offspring are, the offspring and the either widow or widower of the deceased. Now, when it comes to past, those dependents who are the offspring, the law also looks at maybe whether it is the parents, and then if there is no parents, then a next step is to now the siblings, but that is as a last resort. But the whole idea is that the dependents have been well defined in law, in the Law of Succession Act, and as a dependent, you have equal rights as beneficiaries. None of you will rate higher than the other unless defined by law. Now, what happens in situations like this that we are just seeing is that when it comes to inheritance, the members of the family have inheritance that is given patriarchally. That means you have the male members of the society who are bequeathed this land and the female members are not. You hear the lady on the clip saying that there was a lady who was married and then now is coming back to claim land. Now, what happens is that traditionally in our societies, you find that communities will dismember the female members who have been married and will look at them as outcasts in terms of inheritance and succession, which means that when it comes to the succession of that property, the women who have been married will not be given a portion. So that means what happens if they get divorced, for example, or they get widowed? Chances are that they will come back home. When they come back home, there's no inheritance left. And these are the kind of wrangles that will come in. Ideally, what happens is that when it comes to ancestral land, there's something called constructive trust. The land is held for all family members as beneficiaries in trust, which means that you will not have a family member who's a legal dependent ostracized because of the fact that they were not there at that time. Whether they're there at that time or not, I think the courts have been very, very clear in saying that it doesn't matter where they are, whether they're there at that moment, whether they're out of the country, whether they have been married and not in the property at that time, they must be provided for. The law of succession gives everybody as a beneficiary an equal right to that inheritance. Now, one thing that I would want to say is that when it comes to wrangles like this in terms of succession, every member has to be very careful because when it comes to applying for and petitioning the court for grant of probate, this is where the matters will now be muddled up. You get the distribution of this property being given in a way that it is tokenism to some people. The members of the family do not understand that it is a right for every beneficiary to own equally with other people in the family. When it comes to intestacy and there's no will that was left, then the beneficiaries and the dependents must be given equal right of inheritance.
Okay, thank you for that, Neddy. One more quick one just on that. And for instances where a person, say an old man, for example, his will is oral, they sometimes say, that piece of land near the tree, that belongs to you, and the one just behind the kitchen, that's yours. Who resolves these kind of issues? Is that the court? Because obviously you don't know how much acreage you're talking about, but those were his wishes.
Yes, I think, yes, the matter of wills are all proved in court. we have a space in law for oral and written wills. When it comes to oral wills, they will only be valid if given within a span of about 3 months or so before the testator dies. Which means that if it comes to a will that was given orally 1 year ago, I mean, the person could have changed their mind before they meet their demise. So that means the law, if you look at what the law defines as oral wills that are valid, the will has to have been given within a specific time period before the death occurs.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Nedi, for that clarification. Now, over 20 people were arrested in Sigotik, Njoro sub-county in Mount Narok following conflict that left 1 person dead and 12 people injured. The ongoing dispute over land within the Mau region has also left tension at an all-time high in Doswa, Nesit ward, after several houses were set ablaze. Ruth Sarmoe tells us more.
The land conflict within the Mau Narok region has left many nursing fresh injuries and others rubbing old wounds. As Jen, a resident of Sigotik, holds onto a certificate of her treasured piece of land that she was allocated back in 1997, she painfully recounts the conflict that robbed her of her son 14 years ago.
Nduru iko hapa. Sai. Ukiona sisi hapa. Hata yangu saa hii iko kwa simu. Na ni nini sina ng'ang'ania.
The recent fighting in the region erupted after new beacons were erected by the Kenya Forest Service.
Lakini sio hii aliweka juzi. Ni this is man-made. Alikuja kuonyeshwa na ile ni ya 1997 na ako na numbers.
While visiting Doswa in Nesut, where more than 5 houses were set ablaze, the Rift Valley County Commissioner said that the new beacons were put in place to start the review process of the borderlines that were established in 1997.
So that beacon simply means we start from the known to the unknown. Yeah? The known is 1997 inajulikana, maana hapo ndiyo ilikuishia. But now there are people there. What do we do with these people? How many are they? So that hiyo ndio mjadala ambao tuko nayo sasa.
Residents are now calling on the government to intervene by bringing a lasting solution to this problem, as hundreds of residents are now living in fear of being evicted. The commissioner has urged residents to remain calm, issuing a warning to anyone planning to take action into their own hands. The 2 warring communities are expected to be represented during discussions. Meanwhile, police officers have been sent to secure the area. Ruth Sarmoe, NTV.
Now, Mr. Samoe, let me get some of your professional opinion on this matter. Disputes are not just about titles, it's also about boundaries. And you had a talk about beacons and so on. Where it's very vague, can you give us your input into what was going on there?
I think that story that you've just aired marries with the 2 other stories that you have also aired. And before I respond to your question, I would want to say the committee land issue, I think, squarely rests with the National Land Commission. Because one of its functions is to investigate the disposal of public land that had been done previously under the previous regime. So the complaints the squatters have, or the people in committee have, I think the National Land Commission should look into them, and many other cases in the country that people are crying that they were allocated land by government through the president, who had so much power in the land allocation at that time. But now they are living there and they would want access to title and the use of the land. So I think, Mr. Otachi, that ball should be in your court. I think on the issue of Mau, Joe, I would say land and politics are very potent. When they mix, you have those kind of disputes. And land being a socioeconomic good, where it's a source of life, livelihood, and that is why you're having a lot of conflicts in access to land. So the question in Mau is access to land. How is the state ensuring that the population is accessing land to live on, and also protection of the land rights? I saw a lady with a title, a document of allocation. That should be respected. Once the government has given you a title, there is a process in which it can be revoked. But I think by using the state machinery, the state security, to resolve land disputes, I think that is where we go wrong. And that is where you find a lot of pain, a lot of bitterness in how we resolve
land disputes in this country. There are experts, our members, our surveyors, and land administrators who can clearly assist in resolving these disputes. A boundary is very clear. If I may say, survey is very mathematical. You have a specific point that you're saying your land goes to this extent, and you put a mark, which is a beacon, which people call a beacon. And once you have marked and it is on the map and the title has been registered to you, it should be very clear to all. There should be no gray area. So I think what I would say is the involvement of experts.
Mr. Samoei, we still have a lot of gray areas when it comes to these land disputes.
Yes. The gray area is because of not involving the experts. If we had the surveyors on the ground and the land administrators to go through the records, right from allocation to ownership and issue of title, we will not have a situation where you're having public barazas to try to explain a boundary. It will be very clear that you are a landowner, you've come with your documents, we can show you on the map, you're in the register, you're in the registry, and it's very clear. So, but I think, as I started, I said, where politics comes in and access to land is where it complicates everything. It is very difficult to tell politicians to keep off land because that is the livelihood of people they represent. So they have to bring their voice to be heard. But I think the involvement of experts is what will solve these problems sustainably. And I'm happy that I saw the county regional commissioner saying they're involving surveyors. But I think that they should be at the forefront in solving this. The provincial administration should come in to just give a backup and facilitate, but I think the experts should be at the forefront in resolving these issues.
Okay, Mr. Otachi, you have a right of reply. Mr. Samoei says that you should jump in on the committee's quotas issue. It's really in your docket.
Okay, I guess I have an idea as to where it's coming from, but let's start here. You have two groups that are saying, one group is saying you were given this land by the president, other group is saying you were given this land by the president. But the fundamental question is, was that land properly allocated to these people? That's the fundamental question. And as NLC, we have this multiplicity of roles. One is management of public land. And as I've just told you, particularly when talking about forest land, there is a process of degazetting it and then alienating it. Now, in this case, it appears that was not done. In fact, the NLC, just as Samoei says that is our mandate, yes, the NLC has actually dealt with a number of issues around land that was allocated by the former regime. I mean, well, I think the regime at Karura Forest, and said that was irregular and they should revert back to KFS. So in managing public land, we have to be clear that this is public land and you cannot change that. Now, was it regularly given out? If it was not, it remains public land. Now, I made the statement that I sympathize with these people. Now, we also have another role of what we call historical land injustices, where we try to go back and investigate and try to establish, what challenges people have around land issues. That this could fall under historical land injustices. So we have all those roles. But the bottom line is, if the land was not given out regularly, even if you deal with it as a historical land injustice matter, the most you might be saying is that maybe they should be allocated land elsewhere. Maybe. But I don't want to rush in that conclusion. But yes, I agree, we can deal with that and say, okay, fine, what could be a solution?
So just to be clear, because President Moi was very generous in his time, he was almost a land act unto himself and gave out a lot of public land.
Yes.
If today you find out some of the lands, even some of it could belong to powerful people, was given out through a pledge or a gift by the president, but perhaps it was not, the process still wasn't completed, you have a right and you could take that back into public custody?
Certainly. You see, the law, we must work within the law. The law now and the law then did not provide for pledge. You know that the president has made a pledge. what used to happen if the president has made a pledge, that will be actualized by the Commission of Lands then proceeding to allocate. And then that will be according to the law. So, and one of the mandates that we've had, and we've unfortunately that has expired now, but one of the mandates that was exercised by this commission was looking into grants, irregular allocation of land, and where land was irregularly given out, that was taken back. Now, but to link that also now to the Mau issue that Samego was answering, the Mau complex matter is complex.
Right.
Now, as far back as I think 2009, when Raila Amolo Odinga was Prime Minister, there was a task force that was set up, and it comprised a lot of experts who looked into it, and they were able to determine that there was land that was given out irregularly, unlawfully, and so on and so forth, and that ought to be recovered. And there are many, many issues around it. But to cut a long story short, yes, we have we have a role also as NLC in that, because this is public land, forest land, and it's public land. As we speak, there is a process of trying to right the wrongs. There were wrongs, for sure, in terms of how the land was given out. How would those wrongs be, sorted out? That is being done. That is being addressed.
Neddy, let me get a quick comment from you in terms of correcting wrongs of the past. Your thoughts?
Yes, I think we have, thanks Chair for bringing in the issue of historical land injustices, which I think is something that has gone on for well into the 90s, from the post-colonial constitution, and land started being given and bequeathed to members from the reign of our first president, Jomo Kenyatta. Now, what happens is when it comes to allocation of land, whether by the president or others, the land must be available for allocation. And I think this is what Mr. Otachi was touching on when he was talking about the regular and irregular allocation. If land that was given to you as a pledge, for example, was not available for allocation, it cannot be a legal allocation, which means that whatever title you would hold is null and void up to the extent in which it was not available. For example, if it was public land, it remains public land and cannot move from one classification to another if it has not properly been done within the law. Now, unfortunately, ignorance of the law is no defense. When it comes to justice systems and us maintaining the rule of law, we must act with the letter of the law, which means that if the law provides that this is the process of acquisition and maintaining of title, then as I spoke to Article 40 of the Constitution, your title to the land can only be protected insofar as it was properly and legitimately acquired. Now, if you look at the proviso of Section 40, which is Section 46, it says that the law will not, and the government or the Constitution cannot come to your aid if you're holding property that was illegally acquired from whatever sources. If you have documentation, yes, we need some sacrosancy in you holding a title document, but if the document was not properly acquired, then you cannot get protection under the law. Okay. The courts have gone on to say that when you're acquiring property, you must go further than just doing a land search in the registry. Your due diligence, sometimes we need to ask and sensitize Wanjiko that they should not fear from actually approaching lawyers to help them in the process of acquisition of property. Okay. Just to make it is well documented and well done, so that you don't falter in any place, and then it comes to us getting to an illegality in your title.
Neddy, thank you. Thank you very much indeed for that clarification. We'll take a short break now. We'll be back with more on Your World.
Maji mdosi wangu ametupa simu yangu ndani ya maji. mdosi wako kwa sawa.
Venye Nkirota ameniambia ajui na akimpigia simu ashiki. Hi, guy, what
For the women who deserve more, Moped is now in Kenya and more than 40 countries. With its nylon-free surface, new Moped has unique softness and up to 100% protection. Your skin will love it.
Do your gums hurt? Yeah. Does your toothpaste contain sage, eucalyptus, myrrh, chamomile?
Oh, that in one toothpaste?
Yes, try Colgate Herbal. Colgate Herbal contains nature's best herbs and Colgate's fluoride technology to give you strong teeth and healthy gums.
Ah, Colgate Herbal.
Let's go. Colgate Herbal for strong teeth and healthy gums naturally.
Haters saw that video and politicized it immediately. At the president was praising Baba in public but pushing DP Ruto behind Baba's back. Na hiyo confidence nasikia kwa surgery mnakuanga nayo ya kutoa nyama huku nyuma mnaweka place nyingine.
Actually tunaweza toa nyama kwa huko nyuma tuweke kwa
Sisi mtu anakuwa na roho chafu sana.
The procedure of reporting assets to Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Write an email to holders@ufaa.go.ke to request your profile to be created. Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Receive, safeguard, reunite. On the trend, 10 p.m.
Timeless love. When revenge grabs hold of your heart, the battle between love and hatred is to the death. A man who vows to avenge his brother, and his revenge will hurt an innocent woman. A woman he hates, but also loves desperately. Timeless love.
Fake news was so good that so many issues arose before the demonstrations.
The authoritative sources of information, it is becoming difficult to identify them.
Now, what was the role of misinformation in Zimbabwe's protests? We'll tell you what we found out.
We look at what happens when Facebook works with independent fact-checking organizations to combat misinformation on their platform.
And social media applications are tightening the news on misinformation with new features on their sites.
Royalville Gardens is an exquisite gated community nestled in a serene and secure neighborhood within Kiambu County. SMS your name to 20866 today for more details.
Welcome back to Your World, and this morning our big focus is on land. With me is in my panel, Gasham Otachi. He's the chairman of the National Land Commission. We also have with us Abraham Samoe, who's president, Institution of Surveyors of Kenya. We are also joined by Nedi Akelo Namra, who is the managing partner, MS Law Advocates LLP, and also Mwiti Mwiti, a business development manager at Oligro Group Limited. Just before we get into the final leg of the discussion, residents of Cheptais area of Mount Elgon in Bungoma County are urging the government to allow them harvest the crop they had planted in parts of the forest before the forest is fully reclaimed and gazetted as forest land. The Western Kenya Regional Officer of the Kenya Forest Service says that over 25,000 hectares has been illegally encroached and that those affected by the operation to flush out illegal encroachment will not be allowed back.
Families that survived the first phase of a government operation to remove those living within the Cheptais forest complex continue with their daily chores. But even so, The KFS officers say that soon enough, the area will be cleared of any human activity to allow for replanting of trees. Already, 7,000 hectares of the affected land has been reverted back to government.
About 300 families were removed from the forest, and currently they are resettling outside the forest. And almost 600 to 500 structures were put down. And the other point also to note, the operation is conducted fully under adherence of human right.
The community here seeks time to clear off their crop that they say will be ready for harvest soon.
Serikali itusaidie tutoe mazao yetu kwa sababu tulikuwa tumeshapanda na hatukujua kwamba kama haya yatatokea, lakini tungeomba serikali tupe muda tuweze kutoa vitu ambayo kwa shamba.
Kwa vile tumeathirika sana kwa ajili ya operation hii. Tumeumia sana, yani tunaona ya kwamba ukienda ni mbio. Sasa ukienda unakuwa na wasiwasi.
Tulikuwa tunategemea hapa msituni. Tunajua kwamba msitu tumekuwa tukienda hapo kwa sababu ya kutafutia familia. Na mwaka huu tulikuwa tumepanda mahindi. Operation ikakuja ikatupata kama vyakula viko shambani. Na operation ilipokuja mpaka hivi sasa tulikuwa tunatarajia pengine serikali ingetuachia chakula, tungeweza kurudi huko kuharibu msitu tena.
Government says that it isn't backing down on its decision to save the environment and hopes that soon enough all areas gazetted as forest land will be reverted back to the state.
We as the service, we don't want conflicts with the community around any gazetted forest. So before the end of the year, a team from Kenya Forest Service headquarters and government surveyors will come on the ground and do their alignment. So it is just a matter of time.
Leila Mohammed, NTV.
Mr. Otachi, it's only fair to let these people harvest their crop and then leave the forest area. Would you allow that? And it's not up to you, but...
Well, I think that sounds a purely humanitarian issue, and as the officer said there, they will adhere to, you know, humanitarian principles. I think here, really, there's no dispute as to who is...
Even the people accept.
Even the people accept. So it's all a question of, yes, what you're doing is not the right thing, but allow us. To me, it sounds reasonable. It's a kind of thing that KFS would take into consideration, as you already say, that they'll be humane in what they do.
Okay.
Yeah, but then I think, again, as was pointed out by Nedi earlier, there's the issue of the law and ignorance of the law. At times, people would trespass on what is government property. And that seems to be the scenario also with what we discussed earlier about people around the corridor of the railway land. People would look at, and Kenyans have that habit, you look at some land and you say it's empty, nobody's using it. You say, well, let me encroach and use it and see if there's any reaction. And if you do that for some time and get used to it, nobody's asking you, when someday when somebody comes to tell you this government land, you start saying no, but you know, it's a sort of it's sort of like some right has been created over it.
Right.
But that said, in this case, it's a fairly straightforward one, where you're saying this is public land, they ought to leave, they appreciate, and it's a question of just being humane.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Now, let's look at some of your comments and feedback on our hashtag #NewNormal. And this is what you've been saying to us. This is from Matthew Zondoro. The procedure of acquiring land in Kenya is very expensive for poor Kenyans. This makes me wonder why some people should acquire more land than others. The government needs to investigate and make laws that can change what we call squatters or the landless. This system should be changed. Thank you, Matthews, for that. Comment here from Junior. You say cartels are people in government institutions in cahoots with outside criminals who deny people's services for cartels to act as middlemen to make money from citizens. Thank you, Junior, for that comment. Kennedy Okongo, you say the National Irrigation Authority displaced people from their land and forcefully acquired what was left without compensation to lay irrigation infrastructure. 66 households so far internally displaced. Now, is the National Land Commission involved at all? That's a question for you, Mr. Otachi. I'll come back to it. And then Wanyoke, you're saying, how is it possible that green cards are sometimes not available for a parcel of land? Who should be held responsible? Okay, a couple of questions here for you, Otachi. Let's go back to the first one. Were you involved in, are you aware about the irrigation scheme that this person is talking about?
It is not clear whether it is, was it Mwe or where? It's not entirely clear to me. And of course, we have thousands of cases, so I may not personally be aware of it. But what I would say is that, again, if it is, it's a question of determining whether it is public land that was being held by the National Irrigation Board, or whether the National Irrigation Board was encroaching on private land. If it was encroaching on private land, that can always be established and advice provided.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Samoe, you want to take up the issue of the green card?
I think the viewer did not explain circumstances in which the green card is missing. If it's
just for those who don't understand, maybe you could start by telling us what a green card is, first of all.
Yeah, a green card is the master register for the piece of land. So when you go to the registry, you would have what you would, a card that records all the transactions on that piece of land, and the title was issued and all the transactions on it. So it could be missing for various reasons, and because of the manual nature in our record keeping, and that's why we are really pushing for digitization, is manual records are prone to loss, misplacement, and those are the things that arise to what the viewer is asking. So I think with digitization, we would see that those will be things of the past when we have everything on a digital platform.
Samuel, the other question is about cartels. Do they exist still in the land transactions?
I think cartels generally exist in an opaque system. If you go to every sector, whether transport, whether land system, and they exist to facilitate delivery of service where there are challenges. And because they are shadowy, they are not recognized in the procedures on acquiring land or transactions, is when they come in as cartels. So true, because of how our registries are managed and our records are kept, you would want to enlist the assistance of someone to fast track your transaction. And over time, they grow bolder, they grow more connections, and they even sabotage the official processes so that they're able to gain. So cartels, I would say, yes, they exist everywhere. And when we talk about digitization, it would remove that middleman now, because you are able to transact directly with the ministry, with the registry, and you don't need outside assistance. The only person you may need in this case is a certified professional, be it a lawyer, a surveyor, a valuer, who is recognized to transact on your behalf at the ministry.
Okay, thank you, Samuel. What about you, Nedi? In the course of your work, because you also do conveyancing, do you encounter these shadowy people called cartels?
No, unfortunately, cartels are a creation of ourselves. We create cartels by virtue of the fact that we look for shortcuts. We want something to be done faster than the law provides, for example. We want something to be done in a manner that we to maybe save on costs or cut costs there. Now, what happens is we are the ones who propagate the cartels, because without us funding the cartels, they wouldn't be there. So yes, they're there, but they're created by us. It is something that we would want to do as a system. We would say that the citizens themselves should be very clear in what the law says, and they should be forward to adhering to the rule of law and maintaining the letter of the law to enable the institutions that are manned with these records to maintain an integrity and a sacrosanct of that record. So in essence, we do have the cartels, but it is upon us to get rid of those cartels ourselves.
Okay. Nelly, thank you. Now, let me turn to another chapter in our discussion, and that's about the value of land and also valuation generally. And I'll start with you, Mwiti. There is a feeling, a very strong feeling, that land in Kenya is overvalued, overpriced, basically. Mwiti, can you hear me?
I lost you, but now I can hear you.
Okay, yes, sorry.
Yes.
I was just saying there is a feeling that land in Kenya is overvalued, overpriced.
Yes.
You buy land, you sell land. This commodity is too expensive.
In very many cases, that is very true. And, the main contributor to that is a number of factors, including government development projects like roads that now make owners of land hike their prices so that they can have the best gain on it. Let me give an example of myself. I am 36. I've been in business. I've been working for the last couple of 15 years. Today, by the time I was starting to work, a sizable plot, 50 by 100 at that time, around Mombasa, in areas that I was interested in, was selling at about 300,000, 400,000. By the time I had accumulated some funds to own one, the same was way above 2 million. There is an issue, and the challenge we have is buying, the business of land in Kenya is a willing buyer, willing seller. We don't have really a way of regulating that. But yes, I would say players in the industry, and especially landowners, take advantage of a number of factors to unnecessarily raise the prices, locking out quite a number of Kenyans and making it very impossible for most people to own land. Okay.
Now, Mr. Samoei, you carry some of the blame, not you personally, but you and your members in the institution of surveyors, because you are the people, the valuers, who give value to land. Or is it simply it's a buyer, it's a demand that dictates it to all?
Yes, I'm a professional valuer, and I don't think I subscribe to the thought that land is overvalued.
You would say that as a valuer?
I would say that, and I would explain. Consumers and users of land pay premium over the market value to access a particular site. And Mwiti has given an example when there's a big government project coming in, people anticipating the level of economic gain. So they would disregard the market forces and want to pay a premium to access that piece of land. What happens is that behavior distorts the market. The market forces are shifting. So when you record transactions over time, you would be recording higher prices, whereas the underlying fundamentals of economic use of land still remains the same. So land is not overvalued. It is an economic good. And the players in the market, the users, the developers, the renters, have a big role in how they price that commodity in the marketplace. If you see with huge infrastructural developments around the city now, we've seen the price of land softening or falling, because now you have very many options. You don't have to be in Upper Hill or Westlands. You can go to Kilimani and you get a better deal on land and have a project that you want.
And just on that, Samoei, has the pandemic, the corona pandemic, made any differences in land prices as far as you know?
Yes, the pandemic has had a negative effect because it affects the behavior of buyers and corporates and investors in the real estate space. So demand is subdued, and the demand drives value and pricing. So sellers are willing to take discounts up to 15% in many instances so as to sell. And that is recorded in the marketplace, and it becomes a price discovery cycle that over time prices would fall down because of the actions of the players, because of an external force such as the pandemic. So we would see the uncertainty that has arisen because of the pandemic creates a lot of uncertainty in the land pricing model. So now people are buying not knowing if I develop now, if I want to sell now, will I get a better price? So there's a lot of uncertainty in the real estate market because of the pandemic, and that affects value.
Thank you. Mr. Tachi, you want to make a comment on that?
Yes, I wanted to make a comment from another perspective. The view I take is that Kenyans have a certain attachment to land, nearing an obsession on ownership of land, rather than just access to and use of land, ownership of land. And to the extent that then people would a lot of times even buy land for speculative purposes. Buy land, keep it there, do nothing on it. But more important for me, from a public infrastructure perspective, one of the real challenges we have as a country is that our infrastructural projects are very expensive. If you go to Ethiopia or to Tanzania, where land is communally owned, the cost of putting up, say, a railway or a pipeline is far lower than in Kenya. And I think that is something that we need to look into. I know there is a law that was passed last year, the Land Value Index Act, which tries to manage the value of land, particularly when it comes to acquisition. But still, with the desire, Kenyans will rush, when they hear there's a project going to be, oil has been discovered in Turkana, people want to buy land. Now, if they are going to do a road, lapset through, some part of the country where you would not have an interest in, people want to buy land so that they can be compensated. And that is a serious problem in terms of the cost of infrastructure in Kenya.
So we are also the cause?
We are the cause in that sense, yes.
Okay, now, Nedi, I just want to pick up that the Kenyans' obsession with land. We have what we call the weekend beacon trips, where people just gather together to go somewhere just to stare at these beacons on the ground. Very proudly, that's the land they own, maybe as a community or as a circle. What's the explanation for this, our obsession with land?
I think our obsession in land is driven by what Mr. Samoei brought about as the demand and supply equation. This has its genesis in the colonial period. When the colonialists came, and at the point at which we were seeking independence, we were given land as a token. And this token was given not just to anybody, but those who are felt to be better valued. So that is how we gave the value of land to individuals. We had people who had large tracts of land, which some of them have never been used to date. But then this is what was used to value how wealthy you were in that time. Now that has carried forward to date. That has unfortunately created the context of Kenya and the emotive nature of land, and why we have this. We can go and stare at beacons and see how much wealth we are carrying forward and what we can ascertain to it. Now, unfortunately, that is a very wrong way of looking at land, and that is what has driven the value of land maybe to skyrocket to the extent that it probably is not worth what it is, the paper that is written on. We should probably borrow a leaf from the Ghanaian system, where they value the remainder of the lease on the land and not the paper or the soil itself of the land. Which means if you're given a lease, for example, from government for 99 years, then the remainder of that 99 years should be what your worth of that land is. You should be able to make value of that land based on the usage of that land. And we see other governments, other than Kenya, charge for the land that is left idle and it is not being used by citizens. And Kenya should probably borrow that. All the people in the country who have large tracts of land that are not being utilized, they should probably be taxed for it. They should be able to pay for land that is just lying bare. And, our staring of beacons should be able to translate into some revenue for the country.
Oh, okay, thank you. Now, for the remaining few minutes of the show, I want to get a bit more practical and maybe give our viewers some practical tips, since we have professionals in the house. Just the process of buying or inheriting land. And I'll start with you, Mwiti. When you go out as an entrepreneur to purchase a plot of land which you will then subdivide, what are the considerations when you're looking at a piece of land that you want to buy for business? What do you bear in mind?
Thank you for the question. The number one thing we look into is how developed is the area. Because the kind of customers we have, our desire is when they buy, for example, if a customer buys today, our joy is you're able to develop tomorrow, and you don't have to wait for a long period of time for social amenities and other common amenities to reach your property. So number one, how developed is the area? Number two, we also consider the factors around the land. Is it who is the owner? Are there any tassels around the land? Is the family of the concerned seller aware that the seller is buying, in case we are now the spouses and children are involved? What is the community around there like because of taking care of the issue of squatters? So those are some of the things that we look into, so that we ensure the customers that we have, when they buy, they are assured that they are buying a piece of land that has value and gives them the best value for the investment, and also has no other issues around it, and tomorrow they won't have someone bring them trouble.
Thank you, Muti. Very well put. Now, we've identified the land. We're happy with all those conditions that Muti was looking into. We bring in a surveyor, and this is Mr. Samoy, who's coming now to help us. What are the issues that you look at when you are coming to do your job on a piece of land, potentially for someone who wants to buy?
There are two professionals who would come in the buying process, and that is a surveyor to identify the extent of the land. The extent in showing you your boundaries, to confirm the acreage, the location. Is it on the deed plan? Is it on the registry map? So when the surveyor has confirmed that the land on paper, on the survey records, is actually on the ground, then you can maybe engage a valuer to advise you on the value. Are you paying the right price for the area at that particular time? So you have two professionals who would assist you in the buying process. And those two professionals are able to help you also in due diligence to confirm the title, the process in which the title was issued. Was it through the regular process, as we have very many irregular titles in this country. Okay. So through that process, by involving professionals, those two professionals, you are able to get to know if your land is legitimate, so to say.
Okay, thank you. And finally for you, Nedi, what are from a legal perspective, in terms of conveyancing, what do you look out for a client who is about to purchase land?
I think when it comes to the purchase of land, we have to go through all the processes that have come before. That's what Mr. Mwiti spoke to and what Mr. Samoy has spoken to. You must make sure that we have the proper documentation. We go beyond what we call just the search at the land registry. We look at the search in the survey records to just make sure that the map coincides with what is on the land registry, to make sure that if it's some allocation that had been done, it's been properly updated on the survey records. Go ahead and do what is called a historical search on the green card. I think my counterpart spoke earlier, but you go into looking at the nature of the acquired land. Where did it come from? What is the root of the basis of where the land has emanated from, and where you're coming to acquire it? What is the legality and the legitimacy of that title? Once we have gone ahead and done that, currently and after the 2010 Constitution, we have the National Land Commission that is mandated to actually look at what is public land. So we must move forward and also establish that this land does not form part of public land. We've seen in the previous regime, before the 2010 Constitution, there was a lot of bequeathing and pledging of land, which unfortunately was part of what was allocated for public utilities, schools, and that. So do that, and then also conclude and look at what that was reported in the new Commission land report, just to make sure that it also does not appear there and it is not adversely affected by that.
Nedi, thank you very much indeed. Finally, you have just a few seconds, Mr. Otachi.
Yes.
And how do I make sure that what I have, the NLC will not also come and say, this is our property, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, so what they have...
just briefly.
Yeah, Nadi and Abraham and Mwiti have spoken to is establishing the legitimacy of the title or the status of the land. And that is critically important. Now, yes, as Nedi says, NLC has the obligation to come up with a database of public land. We're in the process of doing that. But what will actually ultimately help in this, in the long term, is digitization.
Okay.
The digitization process that is ongoing, once
Which needs to be speeded up now.
Yes. Once complete and successful, will take care of the so-called cartels we talked about. It will simplify matters.
Okay.
So that then it's a lot easier to establish the status of the land.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gershom Otachi, who is the chairman of the National Lands Commission, for joining us this morning. My thanks to Abraham Samoe, who is the president, Institution of Surveyors of Kenya, Nedi Akelo Mamra, who is the managing partner, MS Law Advocates LLP, and also Mwiti and Mwiti, business development manager at Oligro Group Limited. Thank you so much for your time and for your comments this morning. And to you watching us from home, thank you for joining us. We're back on tomorrow with a different show, same time at 7 a.m. But remember, there is a workout session that begins at 6:30 in the morning to just keep you fit and healthy for the weekend ahead. So on behalf of the NTV team here, thank you so much. Stay safe and see you next time.